Hello, thank you for joining me for a Sunday morning gentle chair yoga practice. My name is Janice and I'm a yoga therapist and a fitness instructor, and I specialize in the older adult. Now, gentle means different things to different bodies, and so I encourage you today to use your awareness and the sensations that come up for you to determine whether you want to back off, leave something out, or do a smaller range of motion. It's really important in your practice that you make this your own. This might mean that in some of the practice, you leave something out. Maybe you sit back and observe, maybe you take a rest. It might mean if the arm is going all the way overhead and your arm just is not going to do that today, that you see where can I move the arm to within a range that's manageable for me. So that's really important. We're all over the functionality of this practice, not what it looks like. So that's a really key thing to take into consideration before we begin. And so I thought today we could do just a little bit of a kind of a body scan. And I like to do a little bit of tapping, as it sometimes helps bring in some awareness into the fascial layer. Last week we worked on our feet, and maybe today before class you did that, and if you didn't, maybe you can do it after class. Today our fascia work will be gentle tapping, and the tapping I'm going to use mostly the palm of my hand on the larger areas of the body, and in some of the gentler areas of the body I may use 1 or 2 fingers, just like a tapping. And if you have an injury somewhere, you can leave this out. But I'm going to start with sitting a little at the edge of the chair so I have more access to the bottom of the legs and such. If I'm all the way back in the chair, I don't have as much area to make contact with. So I'm sitting at the edge of the chair. As usual, I like to sit on a blanket, and I have it not flush with the end of the chair. I have it just a little bit back, so my sit bones are on the chair. This is going to help facilitate that gentle bit of the pelvis tilting forward. And most times, for most people, our pelvis is tucked under, and then we end up in this position. So that might facilitate a little more of a easier way to sit up tall in your chair. I'm going to take my hands, avoid any area of actual injury. We're aiming for fleshy bits, not bony bits. So, knees and elbows, you can leave those out. So I'm going to start with my thighs, and the amount of sort of assertion that you use is up to the comfort and the types of areas you're tapping. So in the back of the thighs, I got lots of extra flesh. I can be a little more assertive in the tapping. And then you might even get the back of the calf muscle, sides of the calf muscle. Back up to the hips here. You might get your lower back. You may gently come around and tap on the rib cage. And then as we come up to the chest here in the center here, you might take 1 or 2 fingers just very lightly tapping around the chest here. This can be helpful for awakening the thymus gland, which helps regulate and controls the lymphatic system, so the immune function. Very good. And you might even tap onto one shoulder and down the arm and under the arm and then the other shoulder. And one more place I really enjoy doing a little tapping to encourage some relaxation in the face. Again, this is optional. I like to close my eyes and use 1 or 2 little fingers, tapping gently on the forehead, maybe starting at the center of the forehead and moving it around, allowing the eyes to soften back into the skull a little bit here as you tap on the face. Again, if this doesn't feel good, leave it out. And then lastly, I'm going to go back to my thighs. I'm going to give them another little assertive tapping here. And then I'm going to just take a moment to pause. So once you pause, if it's comfortable and you could close your eyes, this might help to invite that more inner awareness into the internal body. So it helps us cultivate interoception. But if closing the eyes makes you feel dizzy or unsettled in any way, you might just have your eyes open, but sort of half cast, so you might be looking down at the floor, thinking of sending your awareness inward. Just wherever you are here in this position, just take a moment to do a little body scan, just encouraging your body to relax as much as possible. Just acknowledging any discomfort that you might have in your body today. Or maybe the mind is very busy Just noticing your emotional state, your physical state, and setting an intention to move in ways that support your wellness. And even if that means, as I mentioned at the beginning, leaving things out. All right, if your eyes are closed, I'll invite you to open them. So our first movement's always a good thing to start with is the movement of the pelvis and the movement of the spine. So the rocking chair, sort of my go-to first movement. What's really happening is our pelvis is going to tilt forward, come to neutral, and it's going to tuck back a little bit. And then by using our feet, lifting the toes and the heels, we can facilitate a little bit of full body movement. So with the hands on the thighs, sitting at the edge of the chair, sitting up tall, take a breath. On the exhale, as you hinge forward, for some people, lifting the heels is going to feel quite nice and like a little extra stretch in your lower back. As you come up and the heels come down, you might lean back into the back of the chair a little bit, so you're tilting the pelvis in the other direction. Your toes might lift. And then as you come up, the foot comes down. And then as you come forward, the heels lift. Good. So try that a few more times. Now, you can breathe in any way that's comfortable for you, but if you'd like to link your breath and movement, maybe start at center. We'll do 2 more and see if you can link your breath and movement. That might mean that you move faster or slower than my cues. So you can just use me as sort of a reminder of what's next. But I really encourage you to see if you can find your rhythm with your breathing. Just comfortable, natural breathing in any way that it works for you. So I'm going to take a breath at center. On the exhale, I'm going to come forward. On the inhale, I'm going to come up. On the exhale, I'm going to lean back. I invite you to try one more at your own pace. Inhaling up. Exhaling as you come forward. Inhaling as you rise. And exhaling as you lean back. Good. Now as you come up, we'll do child's pose, which is similar to that forward position, except we're going to keep the feet flat on the floor. And as you come forward, you could keep your hands on your thigh bones, sort of giving you support here. My preference is the forearms, and for quite a few people, this is going to be a nice, comfortable position. So if it is, you can take a moment here. Anytime in the practice, if you're feeling you need a break, you need a rest, feel like your back is giving you any discomfort, this might be a good place to come back to and rest. If you would like to add a little neck stretch and awareness, you might draw your chin into your chest here for a moment. Take a little sigh breath to encourage a little softening in the held tension, maybe in the neck and the face. And you also might facilitate a little bit of the chin, moving a tiny bit over to one shoulder. So go slow, tiny, small, controlled movements for the neck. And then you might pause back at center. And then you might allow the chin to move a little towards the other side. Knowing that you can leave anything out at any time. Coming with a mind of kindness and curiosity as you move today. You've come back to your center. As your hands come back to your thighs, I'm going to press into the thighs to come up. All right, so now that we're up at center, so we've moved our pelvis. So notice that the body can move just from the pelvis. So when I'm bending forward, if I'm hinging from the pelvis, the lower back is not rounding. And this is really helpful when we come into some of our standing movements today. That idea of bending forward from the hip crease. This means that the pelvis is what comes forward. Yeah. And then comes up. And as we lean back, we end up in the back of the sit bones as the pelvis tucks in the other direction. Good. So as you come back to your center, it's kind of like pelvic neutral. If your pelvis was a bowl, in this position forward, the water would spill forward. At center, your bowl of water would be full. And as you lean back, your water would tip the other way. So just see if you can find a place where you feel like your pelvis, if it was a bowl, it was at neutral. And then we're going to go into the movement of the spine. Flexion, extension is first. Always moving in a range of motion that's helpful for you. I encourage people to start out small and then see as you move into the movements, maybe it's comfortable to do a larger movement and maybe you decide to stay with a small movement the whole time. So I'm going to turn my chair to the side so you can see better. Lots of people will know this one well. Cat-cow can be done standing, seated, and it can also be done on your hands and knees, which was usually the more traditional version. So if I started with my hands on my knees, I'm going to take a breath in. The hands come close to the hips and sit up really tall. I might even look up a little bit to add that full extension of the whole spine. Good. Now, as you exhale, you're going to slide your hands towards your knees and let your upper back round, chin to your chest. Good. So on the inhale, think of sliding the hands up towards the hips, undulating the spine into its length. Exhale, sliding the hands forward, upper back rounding, chin towards your chest. Good. Just try that 2 or 3 more times. Think inhale, slowly lengthening. Exhale, slowly rounding. Just noticing, I'm just showing you some varied ranges of motion, but also some difference in speed. And so what you might notice is your pelvis is also tilting forward a little bit as you sit up tall, tilting forward just a bit. And that as you go into that rounded position, the pelvis has tucked under. So the pelvis is a really important, large part of the body that helps sort of give us balance, stability. And it's involved in all of our spinal movements to some degree here. Let's try it one last time. Sitting up as tall as you can. And sitting small. So that idea of kind of letting the chin come into the chest, upper back round, arms stretching over your knees. Good. We'll just come back to your first position. Keeping in mind at any time if you need a back stretch, sometimes just coming forward and lifting the heels provides a little bit of a gentle stretch in the lower back. But use your comfort to guide you. If I suggest something that I say is really helpful for your back and every time you do it, it causes you discomfort, then it's not helpful for you. And so your sensation is paramount to my suggestions. So we're going to go into a twist, a little gentle twist. Now if we're twisting in ways that we can do without force, so often when I say twist, people think of pretzels. People think of very sort of exaggerated movements of the spine. What I really encourage people to start with is gentle movement of the spine within a range that you're not forcing anything to happen. So this first twist is for that, and I'm going to take the hands to the knees. I'm going to take a breath at center, sitting tall. On the exhale, one hand will slide towards your hip as you look over the shoulder. On the inhale, the head and the shoulder and the hand come back. On the exhale, we're going in the other direction. So see if you can do that 2 more times on either side. Inhale to center. Exhale to turn. If it's comfortable, you might even close your eyes. So you can take your mind's eye right into your spine. Inhaling to center. And exhaling to turn. Yeah. One last time. Think of gentle twists as a wonderful way to promote balance. Give the spine a little bit of movement. The kind of movement that helps maintain bone density, as long as we're going in a comfortable range that is not forced. That's it. And they're also good for digestion. There we go. Good. So as you come back to your first position, right, we're going to take our side bend today. Lots of different ways of side bending. The intention is to get a stretch at the side body between the hip and the rib. So I'm going to lift my toes, turn them out, place them on the ground. Lift my heels, turn them out, place them on the ground. I'm looking for a nice, comfortable, wide angle with my legs. Everybody's different. I'm looking for that wide angle, and you likely have to readjust how you're sitting. I'm still sitting at the front of the chair, but I have to sit back a little bit further so I don't feel like I'm sliding out of the chair. All right, so as you sit up tall at the center, see if you can lean over to one side and place your forearm Now that might be a lot of sensation on this side for you. So if you're feeling on either sides of the spine that this sort of supported forearm position is too much, then it could be your hand and you're leaned over just a little bit less. So it's just a little bit further for the forearm. So just see if it's forearm or maybe your hand. So you're very slightly leaning over to one side, slightly. The opposite arm could come up and we could slice it around towards the other knee and bring it back. And do that 2 more times. Slicing the arm in front of you towards the knee. You might even think of the chest opening a little bit. And back. That's it. 1 more time. Slicing the arm around. And back. Very good. And then as you bring the hand down, we'll come up. So I took a little shoulder roll at center. And then a little shrug. Alright, so as you sit up tall, we're going to lean over to the other side. Just go slow and just see. Is the forearm on your thigh feel like a manageable stretch on the opposite side of the body or not? You can always come up and do less and still get a stretch. If it's comfortable, the other arm can come up and you're going to slice it around towards that knee. If it's comfortable, the chest might open a little bit. That's it. Try 2 more with the arm. If your shoulder is injured and it just doesn't want to do this movement, you could just stay here and take some breaths. So just know that it's acceptable to leave parts of the practice out and do the ones, well, the parts of it that are working for you in this moment. Very good. As you come up. All right, we're going to stay with our feet wide for the last little back stretch before we move into our shoulder warm-up. So with our hands up, I'm going to turn towards one leg without any force. So that would be your comfortable spinal range of motion for turning, twisting the body to the side. Hands on the thighs, on the thigh. And then just go slow. You might go all the way down and all the way up. You might go halfway down. Flat. Just see how that feels for you. That's it. Very good. You could try 1 more if you like. Knowing it's acceptable in this practice to just sit back and rest and observe at any time. Yeah. Okay, good. And then when you're ready, as you come back to your center, I like to bring the hands up, sitting up tall, seeing how comfortable or what spinal movement is available to you without force. Sort of turning towards that other leg. And then the hands come to the thigh and down we go. Noticing that I'm keeping my head above my heart, in line with my neck and my shoulders, and that will prevent extra pressure in the eyes or in the head. Which could be important if you had high blood pressure or eye issues, that you want to avoid your head going below your heart. What I mean by that is this. Okay, as soon as your head is below your heart, you're potentially putting some more pressure in the head and the eyes, which is not necessarily helpful. So once you've done 3 of those, and you come back to your first position, we'll bring the feet back in. So lift your toes, bring them in, lift your heels, the toes, and the heels, and toes, and the heels. So you're back at your first position. Very good. All right, so let's try 3 shoulder shrugs just to encourage a little release in the shoulders. So shrugging them up on a breath in. On the exhale, maybe through the mouth to release tension. You can try that 2 more times. That's it. Maybe 1 more. Good. And then we'll try the shoulder rolls. So we're going to focus on rolling the shoulder a little forward, a little bit up towards your ears, a little bit back towards the back of your chair, and a little bit down towards your sit bones. And this is another movement, especially if you have shoulder injuries or limitations, that if it's available, you might close your eyes. And as you do your circle, really take your mind's eye into the shoulder, rolling forward and up, gently back, gently down. If you encounter pain, restriction, or clunkiness, Here's a great example of a movement that sometimes tiny, tiny movement is much more beneficial. So the teeny tiny micro circles, gently up, back, and down. Very good. Last time. This time as your shoulders slide down toward your sit bones, bring your elbows close, palms up. Very good. All right. So from this first position, this is elbows close, palms up. Great position to start working on some awareness of the shoulder and all it does. It's the most mobile joint in your body except for your neck, but it's a complicated joint. So let's just see what the shoulder does here. So as if you were holding two cookies and you offer them to the neighbors and then you change your mind. So essentially I'm trying to keep the elbows fairly close, snug to the body, and just see what range of motion is available to me from the hand and the elbow, externally rotating. Feel it in the shoulder. And here, if you've had an injury, there might be a limitation. That's it. Good. Okay. Now, as your hands come around, I'm going to hold my opposite forearms or my elbows. Now we're going to warm up the shoulder a little more. And again, there's a range of motion that's restricted. I'm going to take note of that and move accordingly. So I'm going to start with rocking the baby here. A little up to one side, a little down to the other side. Now for some people, you might start exploring the arms going all the way over, up and around and back down. See what's available. You might make it smaller. So here's an example of a smaller range of motion with the same movement. You can see that I'm kind of keeping it more in front of me, versus my full range of motion, which might be getting the arms higher, up and over and down. Do what is comfortable for you in this moment. My favorite teacher used to say, it might be not never, it might be just not yet. And sometimes it's not never, or it's never. It's, my body doesn't want to do that. And the good news is there are thousands of variations in the yoga practices that we are doing to sort of speak to the variations in your body and in all bodies. So we've gone the other direction a few times. Very good. And then we'll just take a moment to shake out the arms. Very good. All right. So I'm going to invite you to sit back in the chair. I don't do that very often, but I just want to address the foot and the wrist and the ankle. So as you sit all the way back in your chair, okay, still trying to sit up tall. So as you sit back with your sit bones and your leg bones on the chair, I'm trying to encourage people to not just kind of lean into the chair and kind of let those core muscles relax. If you're sitting up tall, you're using your core muscles for the whole practice. So let's just see if we can take one foot a little off the floor, not too much, and just do some circles in one direction and then the other. And then you might do a little pointing and flexing here. That's it. Very good. And then place the foot down. Let's try the other side. So little circles. Very good. A little pointing and flexing. That's it. And then we'll place the foot down. Okay. So there's not a lot you can do to strengthen the knee in a chair, because mainly we want to strengthen the quadricep muscle that's above the knee, usually through squat positions or sit to stand practices, to support the knee by supporting the quadricep muscle, which is just above the knee. We can do something in a chair, however. So if we sit up tall, I'm going to extend one leg out as far as it will go comfortably. So a full extension might not be for you, but if it is, your quadricep is now working. Yeah? And then reaching the leg down or bending and bringing it to the floor. Try the other leg, see what's available. Reaching through the heel, then we're getting a little stretch in the back of the leg. And down. Very good. Now, we're going to add a little right brain, left brain activity. So this is using your opposite arm to your opposite leg. So I'm going to start with my right leg and my left arm. So I'm going to take a breath in and extend the right leg and the left arm wherever it goes comfortably, and exhale down. Inhale into extension and exhale down. Try that one more time on either side. Good. Last one. Very good. Okay, good. So the last thing, so neuroplasticity, or right brain, left brain, we were just doing that. That's a great way to encourage our brain to always, at all times, be creating new learning pathways. Great if you can do opposite arm to opposite leg, or try to coordinate your breath and your movement. All these things can be really helpful. So one thing I wanted to just address with this is that our mind body has a lot of its own patterns already at play. So I'm still sitting at the back of the chair. All right, so I'm going to take my one foot and I'm just going to invite it into a circular motion. And then I'm going to make a little fist and I'm going to try to take the same side of the body, arm going in the same direction. Okay. So your practice here is to see if you can just switch the direction of your hand. So keep your foot moving in the same direction and change the direction of your hand. So I did it, but it was difficult. And I will tell you, it took me about a month of doing this every day before I was able to let the foot move in one direction and the hand to move in the other direction. Just the attempt is going to encourage a little neuroplasticity. Okay, so oftentimes, you can shake that out. Let's try the other side. So a little circle with the foot and the hand. So this time we'll try to change the foot direction and keep the hand moving in the same direction. See what happens. So change your foot direction. There we go. And you're keeping the wrist moving in one direction and the foot moving in the other direction. It is tricky. So if that was challenging for you today, I would say most people, the first time they do this, it's pretty challenging. It's pretty tricky for me to have to keep it going if I don't think about it. Okay? So you might just take a break. You might try that a few times this week. You know, really focus on one arm and one hand going in the same direction, and then say, okay, the foot's going to keep going in this direction. I'm going to switch the direction of my hand. And just see. And have a little playfulness as you do that, because your body might have a different idea than your mind. Okay, good. So we've warmed up our knee joint a little bit. I'm going to scoot back to the edge of the chair. Good. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of movement for the hip. So this is where we're going to use our hands to lift the leg. If that's not available for you today, there is the option of using a band under the leg, but oftentimes if the hands aren't available, the band doesn't necessarily make it easier. So let's just see if it's available. Sitting a bit at the edge of the chair, I'm going to lift up my right heel. I'm going to lean forward a little. I'm going to take both hands and I'm going to lace them underneath the thigh. So I'm lacing them together as if I was making a sling for my leg. Okay, so now then as I lean back and bring the leg, I'm really using my arms to lift the leg so that my hip is relaxed as much as possible here. And then you might just start to do a little movement out and in. Just a tiny movement with the knee. That's it. You might do a little circle in one direction. So we're rolling the hip around in the socket here. And then the other direction. Very good. And then the last thing I'll do here is take a big breath. Sit up tall, exhale, nose towards your knee. They don't have to touch. And then as you come up, place the foot down on the ground. Very good. Now, let's shake out the hands in between. So we're going to do a flick the goo off the fingers. You might flick all the way up overhead or wherever your shoulder's comfortable. On the way down, stretch the hands and the ligaments around the hands and the forearms. Palms face forward as the arms come down. That's it. Let's try that one more time. So it's flick. Good, until you've stretched out the arms as much as you can, and on the way down, as you do this movement, it's for the shoulder, the elbow, the forearm. Yeah, good. And then when you're ready, we're going to lace our fingers under the other leg. So I lift the heel, the leg I'm going to lift, hinge forward at the hip, hands under the thigh bone, lace them together, create your sling, As you lean back, use your biceps to lift that leg. So I'm really using my biceps to keep my leg up in the air. In fact, you could bicep curl your own leg here. Okay, so here we are. We're going to do a little movement for the hip, just a little out and in. And then you might add a little circle. And the other direction. That's it. And then lastly, nose towards your knee, sitting tall, big breath. Curling your upper body forward just a little bit, just see what's available. We're not trying to get anywhere, just seeing what's available. And then the foot comes down. Very good. Yeah, okay, shake out the hands once again. Good. All right, so let's take a moment. We're going to use a strap a little bit today. So last class I encouraged people to find a stretchy band. If you do not have a stretchy band, what I might encourage you to do today is do the movements without the band. You will still feel the muscle groups that we're working. And also, if you're actively injured, it might be better to do the movements without resistance and then add resistance once your body is in the healing process. So it's really going to be individual for everybody. Just know that you can do the movements with the stretchy band or without. Yeah, maybe not the strap so much. So if you do have a stretchy band, great. We're going to start with the rotator cuff. So we already started today with our elbows close in this movement. So if you don't have a band, I would encourage you to come back to this easeful movement to just start encouraging some internal, external movement in the shoulder. If you have a band, elbows close, palms up. I'm going to make a little fist. I'm going to try to keep the elbows nice and snug against the body. Just 4 times, I'm going to gently pull. So what you might feel is some muscles along the back of the shoulder blades activating. And here's a great opportunity to explore effortless effort. So if you go into this movement and you feel everything's tensing up or shaking, then we're in effort and we've lost our effortlessness. And yoga is all about the balance between those two. So going in a range of motion where you're like, okay, I can feel something happening, but my shoulders can stay relaxed, I can still breathe, I'm not feeling any sharp pain in the body. It might be challenging, but it should never be sharp pain, tingling, numbness. In any way that comes up, you would just leave that movement out for today. So just one more perhaps. Just think of that as a primer for those muscles in your back. Good. Take a break. Shoulder roll. So while the shoulder is the prime mover in this next movement, this movement is to help strengthen the muscles in your back. So let's all try it without the band. And take your hands up in front of you, about shoulder width. Just a soft elbow bend, just so that the shoulders aren't locked. Yeah. Now just see if you can take your arms out to the sides and back with your palms facing up. Very good. Okay, so if you have a band, we'll try it with the band. If you don't have a band, keep it going with that movement. So you're holding a little fist, you got palms up, thumbs on the outside. You might widen your hands here. You want to find a nice range of motion. Just stretch out and come back. So experiment. If it's feeling really challenging, a little less tension in the band. Just going to do 4 of these today. Think of breathing in perhaps as your arms stretch out and exhaling as they come back. That's just a suggestion. You can breathe in any sequence that feels comfortable for you. But just notice often we hold the breath when something's gone beyond a comfortable range of motion. That's it. Very good. Okay, so as the arms come down, a little shoulder roll. Good. Shoulder shrug. This is a nice way to release tension in the shoulder blades. The second movement for strengthening the muscles of the underarm right into here and then some of our back muscles. These all support our posture and keep us upright. Same idea, pulling out to the sides, except the palms are facing down. And as soon as you change the hand position, you change the muscle group. So from this position here, we're going to pull out to the sides and just go slow and see if you can take your mind's eye into wherever you're feeling the sensation ask yourself, does this feel different than the first one we did, palms up? There are different muscles at play here. Some are the same, but the supporting characters in our movement have switched because we've changed the position of the hand. That's it. Yeah, maybe one more if you can. Be sure to take some deep breaths. That's it. Very good. Oh, good. A little shoulder roll and a shrug. Good. Okay. Wonderful. So let's take a moment to work on the foot now. So the strap could be your option for this if you don't have a band, and that also could be your housecoat strap. It could be a belt. It could be a really thick scarf that's sturdy enough for this. The first movement, we are really encouraging that flexion and extension of the foot. These muscles are really important for our balance. So if you're using the band or the strap, we're going to place it under the ball of the foot, a little more at the upper foot here. Okay, like so. I'm going to hold on these sides like I'm holding the reins of horse, and I'm going to extend the leg out in front of me. Now I'm going to hold and create some tension, and then I'm going to push against that tension. Okay, so I'm pushing the toes to the floor and back up again. Okay, so I'll just show you from the side, just so you can see that I'm pulling on the strap and I'm trying to put my toes down and up, toes down and up. And if you have a regular strap, you're not going to get as much sort of that sort of sensation of pushing against it, but you can still facilitate pushing against the strap and then pulling the foot back into flexion. Good. Try one more. Very good. Okay. Wonderful. So now we're still sitting a little at the edge of the chair, holding your band, shoulders up, back, and down. And you might lean back a little bit, lift the foot a little bit off the floor. Now we're going to push down, scoop up, and in. And then push down, scoop up, and in. It's like a backwards bicycle, 4 times. Smaller range if it's feeling like it's too much for your hip or your knee. Very good. Okay, now as that foot comes down to the floor and the heel's on the ground, I'm going to hold it, bring the elbows nice and close, pull the toes back towards you. You're probably already feeling quite a bit of sensation of stretching in the back of the leg. If you want to go further, you might hinge at the hip crease to come forward. Keep pulling your toes towards you. Take one big sigh breath here. Being observant. All stretches can be wonderful for everybody, and they can also be not so great for your body today. So if a hamstring stretch in this forward position is causing you discomfort, please come out. From day to day, your body changes. So it's kind of important to let your practice reflect that. Okay, so when you're ready, we're going to release that foot. And we'll do the other side. So I'm going to put the band just under the ball of the foot. So really under that top part of the foot. And then the foot's on the ground. I can create as much tension as I want. Okay, so I'm just holding the band, and then as I pull on it, I'm creating a little more tension for me to push against. So that I can push the toes towards the floor and let the band help me come back into flexion. So kind of like the pedals on the piano, pushing the foot down and bringing it back up. That's it. Maybe one more. Okay, very good. All right, so now, very good. I'm going to bring the foot a little bit in. I'm going to lean back a little bit so I can lift the foot just a bit off the ground, holding. I'm going to push down towards the floor, scooping up, bend the knee. And just try that 3 more times. So 4 times on each side. Down, scooping up and in. That's it. 2 more. Down, forward and up. Last time. Down, forward and up. Very good. This time, as your heel comes to the floor, you can stretch out the leg, holding the sides of your band or your strap, sitting tall, pulling the toes back towards you, You might hinge from your hip crease to come forward to add more stretch. You might have already been as far as you wanted to go when you were here. So just know that you don't always have to go further. Sometimes it's just about staying in the first position and then finding your breath. That's it. Okay? In your time as you come up and you bring your foot down. Okay, so last thing with your band. So I'm going to bring my feet right together. This movement for the hip, if I didn't have a band, you could certainly do it without. It would be this movement. Knees float out a little bit, feet roll a bit on their edges, knees come back together within a comfortable range of motion in your hip. So your feet can turn on their edges to facilitate that external rotation here. Okay, so we can add some resistance to help strengthen some of the outer hip muscles, outer abductor muscles. So you could put your band on the top of your legs, wrap it underneath, just snugly holding either sides of your band, sitting up tall. In your time, see if you can go into slow butterfly movement. So you take a breath, exhale, just find a range of motion that's comfortable. So if I kept my foot flat, that's as far as I could go. Because the foot, the knee, and the hip are together, if I want to go further, the rolling on the edge of the foot is necessary, but that doesn't mean you have to go further. Everybody is slightly attached differently at the hip. We are really literally all unique, especially with how our joints sit, and are you more externally rotated or internally rotated? And then that additional complication might be that there might be an injury that you're needing to address or be mindful of in movement. Or you have a joint replacement, in which case you might have a new hip and your mobility might be different on one side than the other. Good. So let's see if we can hold one of those positions. So if we're adding that gentle resistance and we hold this position, take some breaths, can be helpful for creating a little bit of stabilizing muscle in those outer hip muscles. So taking a breath or two here. Very good. Last one. Very good. Wonderful. So slowly as the legs come back together, unravel. Okay, so shake out your hands. Good. So I wanted to just address one more thing before we come to standing. And if you just want to do the seated practice, that's fine. You still got a really good full, we've pretty much done a little head to toe today already. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the thoracic spine. So last week I started to talk about often when we lift our arms overhead, our backs arch, and I call it popping ribs. They kind of pop forward and the back ribs come in. So you kind of see this a lot when people's arms go overhead. Watch my back. Kind of like that. Kind of presses on the rib cage and the lungs here, and yeah, and it's not very stable for the thoracic spine. Essentially, we want to keep our back body nice and open. So this might be a helpful way to explore that. So just if you have a band, it could be a strap too, and just for a moment, just for ladies, it would be sort of under the bra line here, so somewhere on the rib cage. I'm just going to see if it's comfortable for you, if you can tie your band underneath around that space. So for ladies, it would be right under where the bra is. Okay. Okay. So you've got something around the rib cage all the way around the back. So what's important to remember is that your rib cage and all the muscles that help you breathe, they go all the way around. We are three-dimensional bodies and we breathe three-dimensionally. So when the lungs expand, they can expand out in all directions, which means when I breathe in, I'm going to encourage, and there might not be a lot of movement here. Just keep in mind that if you have not done this before, you might not feel a lot. It might take a few practices in order for you to start feeling any movement at all here. That's okay. Just a gentle intention to imagine when you breathe in, I want you to think of you're pushing your rib cage out into the band in all directions. So from the side, you might see that my rib cage is expanding a bit out into the band, a bit out into the side, and a bit into the front. And on the exhale, everything slides back towards your center. So just try that one more time. Think of your back ribs puffing out into your band. And exhale. In gentle intention, try it one more time. Okay, good. Now, if I have that intention to breathe into the back ribs, to keep them expanding outwards as my arms go overhead, it's going to be very hard for this to happen. Okay, so I'm just going to show you from the side. If I breathe in with that intention of expanding the rib cage in all directions, as my arms rise, my rib cage and my thoracic spine stayed very quiet, which is very different from this. Okay, so that's that popping rib cage. Might mean that your range of motion might be different. So puffing out the back body as the arms roll up, float up and down. Good. Let's try that one more time. Okay, good. So, just a little introductory awareness into your main organ of breathing and the main muscles of breathing, the intercostal muscles that are around the lungs, and then the rib cage itself. They really expand as you breathe in and slide back together as you breathe out. So, let's unravel the bands. We will build on that again. Keep in mind, if these are new movements for you, if you've never done that, you've never felt that back body expanding, it might take a few practices. Please keep that gentle intention, especially around the rib cage, just that gentle visualization of the ribs expanding in all directions as you breathe in and relaxing them as you breathe out can be really helpful. So you can put your band away and your strap away. If you have a yoga block, once we're standing, you might use that today. If you don't have a yoga block, if you were sitting on a blanket, you might be able to use that in this part of the practice. So make sure, take a look around, make sure there's nothing in your way to get out of a chair. Bring your feet a little closer to the chair. Make sure your heels can still be on the ground. And then to come hinge at the hip crease as you come forward, noticing how as you hinge forward and your nose passes your knee or comes over your knee, there's more weight in your feet now. And maybe from there you can just press into the heels to come up. That you might need the assistance of the sides of the chair, or you might have another way. If that's the case, please feel free to modify that to suit you. So I'm going to move my chair out of the way, but for everybody who's practicing, because we are doing balance, my encouragement to you would be to have your chair in front of you so you have something to hold on to. If you have a walker, you might stand up, put the brakes on, and your walker could be your balance. You could also be at a countertop. Just make sure that you have something nearby. I'm going to move the chair so you can see me, but please keep your chair close by in front of you in case you need it. Okay, so we are going to explore. So we did a little bit of strengthening for the outer leg muscles today. Just want to explore those inner adductor muscles. Very important as they feed into that deep core line. Last week I talked about your core starting under your big toe. It's a thick layer of tissue that runs to the inside of the foot, inside of the calf, inside of the knee, inside of the groin here and the adductor muscles, goes up into the pelvic floor, all the way up along the spine, and the core line that starts under your big toe ends at the back of your jaw on either sides. It's pretty amazing. And so when we connect into this, it can help us feel stable, strong, tall, and it can also sort of release that idea that we have to pull our abdominals in at all time. If we're connected to our core and I'm lengthening through the spine, I can breathe and let my belly expand and gather with ease without having to brace the core in order to feel stable. So let's just see if we can feed into that awareness using the block. So it depends on your leg length You might place it widthwise. Some people can make it lengthwise, depending on the leg length. But you'll know it's uncomfortable if it's hitting your inner knee or if it's up in the inner groin and it's uncomfortable. So, make it accordingly, somewhere in the inner thigh. If you didn't have a block, maybe the blanket you were using, you could use that. You could fold it up. They're a little heavier, but we're not here for too long. So you could use a blanket. It's something that can keep your feet relatively hip width apart, that you can gently squeeze without discomfort. Okay, so whatever you're using, let me go back to the block because it's a little more comfortable for me. Okay, and again, you could do this without and just kind of imagine the leg bones leaning into each other. It's a little harder to sense. So you're holding it here, you're not hugging it or squeezing it, you're just holding it between the legs. And I'm going to encourage you to bend the knees, sink into your feet, lift your toes, spread them out, place them on the ground. Think of the mound under your big toe, your pinky, and your heel like a tripod. Press through those 3 points. And then as you slowly straighten the legs, just gently hug the block. Heels rooting down, you're hugging the block. Good. Now, if you're hugging the block and it's causing you any discomfort, just notice where your pelvis is. By hugging the block, our pelvis has come into neutral. It's not tilting forward. It's not tucking under. It's just right, like Goldilocks, okay? So if you found this position and then you want to leave the block out, if it's in any way distracting, uncomfortable, or frustrating for you, please do that. Props are useful, but not necessary. Okay, so I'm gently hugging the block, pressing down through the feet, thinking of the sternum lifting. I'm going to let the shoulders roll up, back, down, elbows close, palms up, encourage the shoulders to slide down and under. Palms come together, gently pressing into each other, heels rooting down. Could think of activating the quadricep, that muscle just above your knee, so kind of think of it active. And then imagine there's a string at the back of the crown of the head pulling you up. So your chin is slightly tilted down, length in the back of the neck. Find a spot on the ground somewhere in front of you that you could find your focus. So grounding practice here. Think of rooting down into the heels, but lengthening through the crown of the head at the same time. Your chair is in front of you for balance. Just know that at any time, if in the next movements, if you feel unsteady or unbalanced, often just bending your knees a little bit and kind of sinking towards the floor, that is often a very quick way to get your center of gravity back. Probably even better than grabbing the chair, but the chair is there, you could grab the chair too, okay? So you found your focus, pressing into the feet, lengthen through the crown of the head. See if you can slowly bring your body weight forward a little onto the front of the foot. Slowly go through center. Notice your body weight shifting to be more even in both the front and back of the foot. And now see if you can shift your weight a little more into the heels. As you do that, you might notice you're gripping the block or the blanket because your core muscles are trying to keep you up. And then come back with your both feet evenly weighted. See how it feels to shift your weight to one foot. Back to center, and to the other foot, and back to center. And then only if it's comfortable to you and you don't find that you are dizzy or unsettled, if you close your eyes, you could take a moment here and close your eyes. Closing the eyes adds a balance challenge. It's also useful to just check in with how you feel. Heels rooting, chest lifting, crown of the neck is long, or crown of the back of the neck is long. Good. When you're ready, if you open your eyes. Very good. We're going to bring our hands to the chair in front of you, so it could be like so. And then we're going to slowly shift your weight forward, lift your heels. And as you rise one arm up, think of the palm facing inward. So it's the thumb that leads you up. And slowly back down. Try the other side. So palm facing inward, so thumbs lead you up as you rise up onto your toes and slowly down. Good. 2 more times on either side. Inhale as the arm reaches up, heels lifting. Exhale as you come down, moving in a range of motion at a speed that works for you. The slower you do it, the harder it is. And down, we're strengthening the arches of the feet, the back muscles in the leg. It's a great balance practice. For those of you who want a real challenge, you could try both hands at the same time. And they don't have to go all the way overhead. So you might even start with just bringing both arms in front of you as you lift your heels. And then down. That's it. Very good. Okay, so bend the knees and get rid of the block. Shake out your feet. How are we for time? Okay, just a moment or so. So, last thing I wanted to do standing today. We haven't done this one in this class in a while. So, we have our outer hip muscles. So you might, if you're still behind your chair, you can hold your chair. Okay. Your outer hip muscles, these guys here, we did a little bit for them already today. So if you extend the leg out to the side, if you put your hand on your back side of the leg that you're doing, you weren't going to feel your glutes really doing anything. Okay, still this is a really good exercise for the outer leg and hip. But I wanted to share with you a muscle or an exercise that gets at the glute medius a little bit more. And I do this in some of my strength and conditioning classes. It's really helpful for creating some stability around the hip and the pelvis. So it's a helpful exercise, often called the figure skater. So first thing is the position of the foot is going to activate that muscle. So this is the important part. I'm going to externally rotate that foot to a comfortable position like so. So the foot's slightly turned out in a comfortable range for your hip. You might put your hand on the back side of that leg. And it's very slow and controlled. See if you can stake the leg behind you. And what you might feel is your bum is working. This is a great exercise. You can put the foot down in between each movement if standing on one leg for a long period of time is uncomfortable. Aiming for anywhere from 4 to 6 of these. If you're okay, you could let the leg hover the whole time. That way we're encouraging more bone building weight-bearing practice on the standing leg. But if that standing leg is feeling really like, oof, my knee or my hip, then put the foot down each time in between and then to the next one. That's it. So I'm going to do one more on this side. So we're strengthening the glute muscles here, glute medius in particular. That's it. Very good. Shake it out. And it's kind of important to recognize that in history, yoga has not just ever been about flexibility. There's a lot of strength-based practices, even in the ancient yoga practice. And it's very important to understand that yoga is about balance. If I'm really, really flexible in the hip, but I don't have the muscles to stabilize it, it's problematic. If I'm really, really muscular, but I don't have any range of motion, that's also problematic. So we want to find the right range of motion where the joint feels comfortable, but we still have stability. And so these muscles that were the exercise we're doing now is really a stabilizing exercise. So let's switch to the other side. So start with switching your body weight to the other leg. Do a few just out to the side. You might do this just to explore. When you're holding your glute here, you probably aren't going to feel much happening. It's going to be more in the outer hip. Okay. But that sensation, it should change once you turn the foot out a bit on that angle and then just slowly take the leg behind you. So all we did was turn the foot out, and now that I'm extending the foot, there's the glute medius really working hard here and aiming for anywhere between 4 and 6. You can pause in between, you can take a break and return to the movement. That's it. So working our balance by standing on one leg, working on bone density by standing on one leg, strengthening the muscles that support your hip with the moving leg. Very good. That's it. Oh, good. Shake it out. All right, so as you come back to your chair, we'll just take a moment to come to seated and stretch your lower back again before we move on in your day, I guess. So I put my blanket back in that little bit of an edge so that I have a comfortable seated position. But you might want to come all the way down and all the way to the back of the chair if you like. So now we're going to just come into a resting position. So you don't have to sit forward. You could lean into the back of your chair, because now you get to let your body be supported as much as possible. So as you come back, you might take a little sigh breath here. You might try a little shoulder shrug. Let the muscles in your face soften. Yeah. And if your eyes can close and be comfortable closed for a moment, you might do so. Just want to invite you to go back to watching your natural breath come in and out. Think of the body gently expanding on the inside as you breathe in, and softly gathering as you breathe out. Encourage the muscles of the face to soften. Just noticing that interplay, that inner movement, that even in the stillness of sitting in the back of your chair, through your breath, your body is in movement. On the breath in, there's that gentle movement of expansion. On the breath out, there's a gentle movement of contraction. The in-breath, we're creating spaciousness in the body. And in the out-breath, you're encouraging a relaxation and softening back. You might take your hands to your heart center, either in the Namaste position or hands over the heart center. Now, Namaste is a greeting in India. It loosely translates to mean I'm honoring the inner spirit. So it's really the idea that when I say hello, Namaste is sort of a hello, goodbye kind of greeting. But what's beautiful about it is that it acknowledges the inner spirit in the person that you are acknowledging or greeting. So I thank you very much for joining me to practice today. And if you have questions, you can leave them in the comments below. And otherwise, I hope that you come back next week. And there's a subscribe button down at the bottom right side under the picture. If you click that button, then anytime you go to YouTube, those videos, my videos, will pop up faster for you. And so let's take 3 sigh breaths together to finish our practice. Breathing in the nose, out the mouth, a moment of gratitude for your willingness to show up today. So thank yourself for showing up. And a moment, a breath of gratitude for your physical body and all it does for you, the home it is for your spirit. And one more thing you're grateful for. I'm very grateful that you could practice with me today. And I say namaste, thanking you for your practice. I hope to see you again next time.